I still have little victories
Woohoo!
underlined here, which is kind of what we're talking about today too, right? This is the topic that we thought was interesting that we started talking about and that we're now recording, which is,
I said we should take credit for it, but now you're being a little bit too transparent and ethical. But yes,
I mean, transparent and ethical, but what can we track for clients? Is that what kind
Th-
of data can you track and how will it help my business?
yeah, and
Um,
that's a complicated question with like a very lengthy, boring answer.
Very lengthy and boring, but I think the little victory part of it that I
Woohoo!
was referencing is literally you brought up immediately on analytics about one of our very successful clients. So I don't know if you want to bring that back up, but and like let's take another look at um, the data that we can track because I think we'll skip right to the juicy, interesting part, which is this is the best possible data that you can show a business owner.
Yeah, this is a common question, right? And this is one of the things I show people, and they're blown away when they can actually see the funnel in action. So when we're talking about the funnel, just so everybody's on the same page, right? Attention, interest, desire, action, and we're tracking everything along the way. So everybody wants to know basically bottom of funnel, and they want to see like, okay, how much revenue are we making? How many people pay? How many people bought through a certain funnel? And when we have all of the data attribution all the way from top to bottom of funnel, we can see, okay, this is how much awareness and attention we're getting. This is how much interest there is. This is the desire. We measure desire based on kind of return traffic, and then of course the actual final bottom of funnel. This is the actual conversions. And when we have everything kind of granularly marked off from top to bottom, Google is able to provide us with some pretty interesting overviews. And this is digging into the data a little bit, but when it's all set up properly, these are the types of organic reports that we're able to see without even having to do anything extra. This is GA4. Google Analytics is just kind of feeding this data to us. If I look at the touch points, we can see that early touch points represents 25% of the actual conversions. Middle touch points is about 24%, and late touch points is 50%. So what that means is that it takes multiple times, multiple touch points. People have to see the brand and the ads and kind of do a little bit of research and trust the person they're buying from before they make the final purchase. And if you think about like how a lot of people purchase, that makes a lot of sense, right? You see an ad, oh, this might be something interesting, or you're looking for a specific product and you line up a bunch of different retailers. You're then going to investigate each of those retailers a little bit more carefully. Especially for this client in particular, they tend to be bigger purchases. So before you spend like a few $100 or $1,000, you want to make sure you do a lot of research into who it is you're buying from. You want to look at reviews, you want to look at the website a little bit more closely. You want to dig into their social media a bit. And each one of those is a touch point. And that's what we're measuring here. Early touch point, mid touch point, late touch point. So when is the first time we're interacting with this person? What is the first time they're seeing an ad or landing on the website? And then how many days does it take before they do that final purchase? And in between those 2 points, how many times are they interacting with our brand? How many times are they seeing our assets? Did I miss anything? That's pretty much correct.
No, that's pretty much correct. I think that there's a few interesting things in here that we haven't, touched on yet because we haven't actually looked at the data, which we are now. I was just looking up while you were talking the exact definition of organic shopping, just
Okay.
because I wanted to be as like, precise as possible. So organic search is unpaid links in a search engine or like in Google search or other search engines. Organic shopping are unpaid links from shopping services like Amazon, eBay, or Google Shopping.
Oh,
So just to be precise, and we're talking about what these paths are.
okay. So what we're looking at right now, right, is kind of the purchase revenue, but we're also getting touch points to key events. And key events are basically defined by us when we're setting up like an account. But standard key events for e-commerce is purchase, add to cart, add payment info, add shipping info. Am I missing anything? Does phone calls count as a key event?
It can. I think there's a bunch of different ones per client. You said add payment info, add shipping info. Like there, I mean, there's depending on what access to platforms we can get, there's begin checkout. There's form submissions, uh,
Mhm.
yeah, phone calls, emails.
So for this client, I believe that form submissions and phone calls counts because of this particular industry. Again, it's a big ticket item. We've noticed and we've gotten feedback from this client that a lot of people purchase by calling. Even though they have the product up on the screen, they feel more comfortable talking to an actual person to do that final checkout. So I believe that the key events for this client in particular includes phone calls and form submissions, which unfortunately we don't know what the dollar value is for those, so they're set to zero. Okay, so based on that, this is the interesting part, right? We can see a breakdown of the different paths that they took to get to a key event or to get to an actual purchase with a dollar value. So when we break this down, we're able to tell this client that in terms of direct, in other words, somebody just knew exactly what they were looking for. They just went in, typed in the specific website, and landed on the site. It accounts for 31% of the revenue for this period, so about the last 30 days. Now, it seems like when we take a quick look at this, that that's where most of the traffic is coming from, right? Or most of their purchase is coming from. But we actually look at things like cross network, which means ads, um, it accounts for 27%. But cross network times two, which means that the person saw two ads, counts for another 13. So another 40% is easily attributed to ads. Organic shopping, so this is the one that Brent, you were talking about just now, right?
Yep.
Accounts for another 7.3%. And then unassigned is just we're not entirely sure. And this number unfortunately has been creeping up and up and up in the last, I'd say, a couple of years, just because more and more people are running browsers that are security conscious. More and more average people are understanding ad blockers and understanding how to protect their online privacy. So we've just been seeing the unassigned go up over the years just because we're dealing with more and more savvy customers, which is fine. We can also attribute some of the direct traffic to this because no one is going to just type in the website without interacting with the brand in some way first. They either saw a social media post, they saw an ad, they did some prior research. Maybe there's a disconnect because of the way the privacy features are set up, where they might have seen like a YouTube ad and they're accessing it from a desktop or a phone, and they're because of their privacy, Google is not linking their devices, or it might just be straight up we're getting blocked because they're on Mac and iPhone and they just don't play well with the Google system. So even some of this direct traffic, right? We know from experience that the direct dollar figures, if we stop running ads, the direct will have an immediate hit. It's like a one-to-one hit. So even though it's direct, we need to remind ourselves and take that with a grain of salt that that is from the ads performance. And then what really gets interesting is when we start scrolling down, we can see the complexity of the paths that people take before they make a purchase decision. So this is a person that obviously just doesn't care about their privacy at all. And we can just see very, very clearly all the way through, like everything that happened. They saw three ads, it went organic shopping, cross-net, blah, blah, blah. Like you can see their entire path. And then eventually they
Uh,
bought like a thousand bucks worth of product.
which is great. So I think the interesting thing here too, right, jumping off what you said before of like how we see an impact on direct if we stop the ads. And I think like when you look at these more complex paths, this is when a customer says like, oh, well, how much is my organic versus my paid versus my direct? And I'm like, well, aren't they're all linked? And I
Yeah.
think this very succinctly shows that when you're tracking the data properly, you can prove just numerically, quantitatively, how linked they are, and how complex the paths are going to be. Now, the
Yeah.
further down we go down this list, like there are, there's I think less and less quantity in terms of the complexity. So it's like most people follow a very similar path, and that's how you make predictable and scalable models and campaigns for clients. But as we get down here, yeah, it's like basically one person took that specific path, another one took that specific path.
And this is the thing, like we're seeing like there's paid social here, we're seeing cross network all over the place. The number of times, so this one cross network times 10. So basically they like we saw, right? They saw an ad. This is probably the first time that they knew about us. Then it became referral traffic with cross network a bunch of times. So in other words, like once this is this is how we know that we're building that desire, we're building that interest because like our system is set up to retarget that person until they get to that key event. And this final key event was likely either a phone call or some sort of contacting out to the client to say like, okay, you know what, I want to know more about this product. So I think this kind of answers how what we can track and how that helps with the bottom line. I think personally, I think this paints a pretty clear picture. I don't know.
Well,
You
you
think
said
so?
it when that person didn't care about their privacy. It's like basically everything. We can track the entire path from beginning to end. We can
Yeah.
get the amount of revenue, and then we can scale and build predictable models off of that.
And I,
And
I don't
I think
necessarily,
that's the most interesting thing is to be able to prove it here, like in the actual platform. And I think too, like we've been able to show this to clients, and if a client says like, "Oh, well, can you trust Google?" I mean, you kind of don't have a choice but to trust the platform that's serving the advertisement. And I think my answer is like, can you trust Google? And the answer is like, absolutely not. You need to be diversifying your services. Like, we're not only running Google Ads, we're running Meta, we're running LinkedIn, we're running Pinterest, we're running TikTok. So you need them all together.
we're also,
That's why
I
there's
think
cross network.
with this client in particular, I think we're also, correct me if I'm wrong, we're responsible for some content pushing as well for social media.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and that has
yeah,
to do with these complex paths, right? If you're pushing content on social media, you're increasing the efficiency of what your ads will do. You're also increasing the efficiency of what your organic stuff will do. Um, People come into these funnels kind of at all kinds of different points. So even though 300 people, went to a key event after like one cross network reference, or I think I saw paid search down there as well. There's like 39 people, or there was the 300 direct that could be from bookmarks and email campaigns and whatever it is. Like, yeah, that it's bulky and that's where we can, make be very predictable. But then there's all those other ones that account for, you know, a fair percentage as well.
and I think, yeah, so most of what we're doing for this client is display ads, so the cross network stuff,
Yeah, and Google Merchant Center
and,
ads.
and Google Merchant Center ads. So yeah, no, this is proof that it's working. So yeah, I think that does it, right? For boring information.
Yeah, it's kind of just look at this, it's all tracked, and do you want to be the one to calculate it, or do you want us to be?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I think the final thing I would say is that like a lot of this works only because in this particular case, we have full control over the website. So we're able to make sure that schema is implemented properly. We're making sure that the product feed to Merchant Center is clean and that we are firing the data layer at the appropriate times. And for reference, when we're doing all this work, we're confirming with the client that the data that we're seeing in Google, like as much as you say you don't necessarily trust it, we are within 90 to 95% accuracy when it comes to the actual final revenue. So we're very confident in these numbers for this client in particular.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's improvements that can be made, but it's always a question of like how much more effort do you think is like should be spent on something? And that's a business decision that has to be made, with the client. And this client has like opted out of doing something like having the tracking be directly related to the server, just because we can get the revenue numbers so close without it. Like it doesn't really make sense to be implementing that for them. And so, from a business perspective, it's let's try and keep this cost efficient in terms of what we're able to get for now. Where, there could be a point where we feel like we're missing out on, a sizable enough chunk of traffic, where, the data concerns and privacy come into play, and then we have to start, being a little bit more aggressive and finding out other ways to, pursue that for this client. Tribe Marketing signing off. Goodbye.
We should just start recording our organic chats on a Friday.
We absolutely should, especially when Maya has been kind enough to provide us with a list of video topics where we literally just looked at this list of video topics, read through a few of them, and was like, "Oh, this one seems really interesting," and started
Don't
talking
say
about it.
that. Don't say that on the call. We have to make it seem like we came up with these ideas organically.